The Family by Mario Puzo. Completed by Gino. In the chaotic, ambitious, and brutal world of Renaissance Italy, where the line between sinner and saint is perilously thin, Cardinal Rodrigo Borgia walks the streets of Rome with a singular vision. A mountainous, charismatic man whose earthly appetites are as vast as his spiritual ambitions, Rodrigo believes he is an instrument of God, destined to restore the power of a fractured and corrupt Holy Roman Catholic Church. To achieve this, he relies on his most precious assets, his children, born to his longtime mistress, the intelligent and pragmatic Venosa Catanaya. The story begins as Rodrigo takes his three eldest children by Venosa, the fierce and competitive 7-year-old Cesare, the slightly built and favored Juan, and the angelic 3-year-old Lucrezia, from their mother's home to be raised under his direct influence. The dynamic of the family is established in their first steps together, as Cesare, jealous of his father's affection for Juan, shoves his brother, setting a precedent for a lifetime of rivalry. Rodrigo, a master of diplomacy even with his own children, places the brave and uncomplaining Lucrezia on his shoulders, a living crown for the future pope. The children are installed in the Orsini Palace under the care of Rodrigo's cousin, Adriana, and a beautiful young noblewoman, Giulia Farnese, who soon catches the cardinal's eye. The dangers of their world become terrifyingly clear when a goblet of wine intended for Rodrigo is drunk by his son, Juan. The boy is violently poisoned and nearly dies. Enraged and terrified, Rodrigo unleashes his fury, rooting out the culprit, a kitchen boy from the rival house of Rimini, and sending the boy's poisoned corpse back to his master as a gruesome message. This event cements Rodrigo's resolve to protect his family at all costs, prompting him to summon his formidable and ruthlessly loyal nephew from Spain, the scarred and intimidating Don Michelotto, a man who becomes the family's shadow and instrument of vengeance. Years pass. Cesare, intelligent and driven, excels in his studies of theology and law, but secretly longs for the life of a soldier. Juan grows into an arrogant and spoiled young man. Lucrezia, tutored in the arts and humanities, blossoms into a beautiful and charming young woman, the family's most valuable political pawn. Pope Alexander, now Alexander VI, after a conclave rife with bribery and political maneuvering, begins to execute his grand plan. He makes Cesare a cardinal, a position Cesare resents but accepts out of duty. On the eve of his investiture, Cesare witnesses the brutal reality of power during a visit to Perugia, where his friend Tilla Baglioni massacres his own family members to seize control, a lesson in merciless ambition that Cesare never forgets. The political landscape shifts constantly. The threat of a French invasion by King Charles VIII, encouraged by Alexander's bitter rival Cardinal Giuliano della Rovere, forces the Pope into a dizzying series of negotiations. He aligns with Naples, then with France, using his children's marriages as bargaining chips. When King Charles does invade Italy, Alexander is forced to give Cesare as a hostage. Ever resourceful, Cesare manages a daring escape, further solidifying his reputation. The family's fortunes rise, but so do the tensions within it. Juan, sent to Spain to marry a cousin of the king, returns to Rome more arrogant than ever. He is appointed Captain General of the Papal Armies, a title Cesare covets and for which he is far better suited. Juan's incompetence leads to a humiliating military defeat against the Orsini family, further fueling Cesare's resentment. The rivalry culminates at a family dinner at Venosa's vineyard, where a drunken Juan publicly insults Cesare. Later that night, Juan is found murdered, his body riddled with stab wounds and dumped in the Tiber River. Alexander is shattered by an inconsolable grief, locking himself away for days and vowing to reform the church and his own life. Though he suspects Cesare, his son swears his innocence. The true killer, a detail Cesare keeps to himself, is their overlooked younger brother, Joffre, who acted out of revenge for Juan's affair with his wife, Sancha.
With Juan gone, Cesare's path is clear. He convinces his father to let him renounce his cardinal's hat and finally becomes what he was always meant to be, a soldier. Appointed captain general, he begins a brilliant and ruthless military campaign to conquer the rebellious city-states of the Romagna and unite them under papal rule. One by one, the cities fall. He outwits the cunning ruler of Forlì, the virago Caterina Sforza, in a brutal siege, taking her captive and then, in a strange turn, her lover. He uses the genius of Leonardo da Vinci to design a siege engine that terrifies the city of Faenza into submission. His justice is swift, and his administration of the conquered territories is fair, earning him the loyalty of his soldiers and the respect of the common people. Meanwhile, Lucrezia's life is a whirlwind of papal strategy. Her unhappy marriage to Giovanni Sforza is annulled on the sham grounds of his impotence, a process complicated by her secret pregnancy with Cesare's child. The infant, a boy named Giovanni, is secretly whisked away and passed off as Cesare's illegitimate son. Freed from Sforza, Lucrezia is married to the handsome and noble Alfonso of Aragon, Duke of Bisceglie. For the first time, she is truly in love and blissfully happy. But the Borgia family's web of alliances is a fragile thing. When Pope Alexander shifts his allegiance from Spain to France, Lucrezia's husband, Alfonso, an Aragonese prince, becomes a political liability. After a failed assassination attempt on Cesare in the Vatican Gardens, an attempt made by Alfonso himself, the vengeance of the Borgia is swift. Don Michelotto, acting on Cesare's unspoken command, strangles the wounded Alfonso in his sickbed. Lucrezia is plunged into a grief so profound it severs her bond with both her brother and father. She retreats from Rome, vowing never to forgive them. Cesare, now an unstoppable force, becomes the master of the Romagna, but his success creates enemies. A conspiracy of his own commanders, the Condottieri, forms against him. Warned by the Florentine diplomat Niccolò Machiavelli, Cesare masterfully turns the tables, luring the treacherous captains to the town of Senigallia under the pretense of reconciliation, only to have them all strangled by Don Michelotto in a single night of glorious trickery. At the height of his power, Cesare is the most feared and admired man in Italy, but his destiny and that of his family is tied to the life of one man. At a celebratory banquet, both Pope Alexander and Cesare fall violently ill from a fever, likely malaria, but whispered to be poison. Cesare, younger and stronger, fights for his life, but Pope Alexander VI dies in agony. With the Pope's death, the Borgia Empire collapses overnight. Their enemies, the Orsini and Colonna, march on Rome. Cesare, too sick to command his troops or enact the contingency plans he and his father had made, is helpless. The College of Cardinals, free from Borgia influence, elects a new pope, first the short-lived Pius III, and then their most hated enemy, Giuliano della Rovere, who becomes Pope Julius II. Though Julius initially promises to honor Cesare's titles, he quickly betrays him. Cesare is arrested and his lands are stripped from him. He is sent as a prisoner to a castle in Spain. After months of grim captivity, he makes a daring escape with the help of his ever-loyal friend, Duarte Brandão. He finds refuge in the Kingdom of Navarre with the brother of his French wife, Charlotte. For a brief time he finds peace, but his warrior spirit cannot be tamed. He agrees to lead the king's army against a rebellious count, but is betrayed by his own cavalry. Charging into the enemy ranks alone, Cesare Borgia, the man who nearly conquered Italy, is slain in a minor, meaningless skirmish. In the end, it is Lucrezia, now the respected and merciful Duchess of Ferrara, who brings his story to a close. Having found her own peace and purpose, she travels to Silver Lake, the idyllic setting of their childhood. Standing on the dock where they once played, she scatters her brother's ashes into the shimmering water, finally laying to rest the last remnant of the great and terrible ambition of the Borgia family.